And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Let's Talk China. Now, we have some interesting things to speak about today. I have the panel here, and we have a new person on the panel this weekend. It's Alex Absolute. And I'm going to pass it over to Alex so that you can explain to all the viewers where you're coming from, and we will go from there. JaYoe, we'll get you sorted out in a moment.
Okay, so I guess for anybody who doesn't know me, my name is Alex Absolute. It's not my real name, obviously. I'm originally from the UK. I have been living in China for about 7 years now. I've only been making YouTube videos for about 2. Kind of started interested in that kind of thing just after my first son was born. So I've been here. It's been a kind of crazy time. I kind of sit in a weird space in the China vlogging situation, I guess, because I'm not super pro and I'm not against. I always just kind of say I'm pro me, I guess. I like to be kind of balanced, as China is a fantastic place. I have had people in the past be like, oh, you're a CCP shill. But I don't show bad things on my channel because I'm just not a complaining kind of guy, really. I just like to, life is easier when you're just, when everything is sweet and nice and things are happy. That's kind of me. I kind of see the silver lining in everything, and I don't like to complain. So, yeah, that's basically me. I'm trying to think of anything else. I married a local. I kind of settled down here for life, really. I've bought houses and cars, all that kind of jazz. I've learned Chinese relatively well, and yeah, I've still got a lot of room to go.
Well, fantastic, Alex. I appreciate you giving an overview to the viewers tonight. Currently, right now, we also have Gweilo 60 back in Nanning, out of quarantine. Gweilo, say a shout out to everybody here tonight and today.
Hey, everybody. Yeah, Gweilo 60 from Nanning, China, out of quarantine for coming on a week now, and things are getting better. It's we went out to a Korean barbecue here the other night. Everything's basically opening up. I have noticed, though, my gym was shut down. My favorite Brazilian barbecue place was shut down. So there are some things that have happened in Nanning over the last couple of months where things have businesses just didn't make it through these times and stuff. But I'll be on the streets of Nanning for a long time yet. Off to you, Matt.
Matt, off to you.
Hey guys, Matt, JaYoe Nation. I'm sort of in a hypochondriac mode. Is it hypochondriac or Stockholm syndrome? I'm just afraid to go out of my door. I've been quarantined in America and then quarantined in China and then under lockdown in China, and I'm very nervous to actually start exploring. I have explored a couple of times, and I went out with my wife and her family, and there was like 25 of us, and Ningbo has an order to not congregate above 30 people. And we went to this hotel resort, which was beautiful and new and freshly constructed, like a multi-million-dollar resort in the mountains of Ningbo. And it was so eerie because it was just us sitting there eating our meal together, and there was nobody else. And this whole infrastructure was created to entertain thousands of people, and it was just us. So it's just odd to see how life is trying to restart, but that makes me a little bit happy. I'd rather see it start slow than explode and have us get into another mess.
Well, thank you for that, Matt. Now, everyone, as you know, we are running 4 channels here at one time, streaming to 4 different locations. Myself and Gweilo, Alex and Matt are streaming on our own channels. So if we're talking about people that you don't see in your chat room, that means they're either on our channels or on Gweilo's channels or Alex's channel. So I'm just going to come up to my guests today and say a special hello to Ken. Thank you, Ken, for joining tonight. Caliber Wings, thank you very much for coming in. And if it's really important, guys, I know you guys might find this sometimes annoying, but I'm going to explain what this is if you hit that like button, if you see that below our video there, the like button, that's important because that helps the algorithm of YouTube get this channel out. It's saying, hey, everybody's watching this channel, and it's telling the rest of YouTube to get involved in these forums. We're not doing it because we want to be popular. We're doing it because we are here on our weekend to dedicate time to you guys. And I'm going to actually now really dive into this topic tonight. And Matt, I'm just going to ask Matt, can you hear me okay? Okay, perfect.
Yep.
So we got the sound issue there, and we also got Wesley in the back helping us out. As you know, these shows are a little bit, we look on surface, it looks quite easy for us to pull this off, but we can't do it without the help of Wesley. So Gweilo, you put out quite the video yesterday, and it's lighting up YouTube, and you had a lot to say. Do you want to maybe talk about that?
Oh, no, I don't think so. No, I'm kidding. You know, the idea that Western media is well, how do I even start this? Western media is fueling a storm that is costing people lives. You've got how does that go? In January, the Democrats were trying to impeach Trump, okay, and the Republicans were trying to protect Trump. Then in February and March, the Democrats were dealing with, and I'm talking the United States, of course. We're going into the Democratic presidential elections or primaries, or what do they call them?
Yeah, primary. Well, let's call them the primaries.
Primary elections, yeah.
Give you the pass.
And then after that, you got Martin Luther King Day, where you got all of the presidential candidates, Democratic presidential candidates, walking with African Americans across the Selma Bridge, promoting the civil rights victory. During these 3 months, China was sort of in a battle. They've locked down 60 million people. People were dying. Lots of people were infected. So they were in battle with this coronavirus. And what was the United States doing at this time? What was the administration doing to protect their citizens? Bear with me. There's an end to this story. Then the United States says, well, China dropped the ball. They didn't give us enough warning and whatever, but they did give them a couple months warning. All the time that this is happening, the mainstream media was focusing on anti-China rhetoric. China did this, China did that, so fueling the storm. So you've got the mainstream media fueling the storm, sending out misinformation. Then you've got the American administration doing absolutely nothing to protect their citizens, and because they were ineffective in dealing with this, you've got misinformation from mainstream media. You've got the political people not doing their job properly to protect their citizens. And what do? They blame China. They point their finger at China to take the focus off of them and their inability to do things. And you can see it in the mainstream media. You've got, like, China should be legally liable for pandemic damage. I'm reading this right now off some notes I've got. That came from the Washington Post. China wins a seat on the UN Human Rights Council, but then when you open it up, it says China has won a seat on the controversial UN Human Rights Council, and this is Fox News. But then the next thing down in Fox News is senators urge UN to suspend China appointment to the UN Human Rights Council. You get all of these things. It's all bad news coming out of mainstream media, and I don't think that does any good for anybody. I think that it really doesn't matter where this coronavirus came from. I think what matters is how do we beat it as a global community. So I think that's basically what that video is about yesterday.
Mm-hmm. We're going to continue on this subject. Just want to say thank you to someone is giving you a donation, Gweilo, there. Gweilo, I promised Miranda that you will pay for her hard work in beers. If you guys know, Miranda is running the, we'll call it, well, she's the policeman of your chat feed, which is quite interesting to be a policeman of your chat feed, Gweilo. Thank you, Keller.
And that's a fantastic name, Fluffy Fluffing fluff.
Fluffing
Fluffing Fluff is always on my channel, and a really positive character. But Miranda, she doesn't drink beer; she drinks vodka. So yes, I'll have to pay her in pounds of vodka.
Caliber Winks, thank you very much. China's decision in Wuhan is like that of Denzel's orders to close the hatch in the movie Crimson Tide, else the entire submarine goes down. And lo and behold, who's come in here? Tim K. Is that Bill Maher on the upper left? Oh, I love that. Alex Absolute, I'm sure you have an opinion on this. You've been warming up behind the microphone there. Let's hear what you got to say about this.
Yeah, but for me, I've always kind of taken this opinion that the media everywhere lies and kind of like does underhanded and shady things to an extent, but I've never actually seen it firsthand until this whole like epidemic thing, when some people here, because I live in Wenzhou, like if anybody knows Wenzhou is like a coastal east coastal city. It's pretty affluent. Actually, I'm not very far from Matt JaYoe. Anyway, I digress. So there's like a relatively big foreign population here, and a school recently, like we were contacted in a WeChat group chat, like a reporter was added to the group and she wanted to talk to people. And at first everybody was kind of, relatively friendly and positive. I mean, I added her myself, and then like something in the back of my head was like, this doesn't feel right. I'm just gonna get rid of her and like not deal with this woman. And turns out I was almost 100% right. If anybody wants to see what I'm talking about more in this story, you can go to my channel, and I made a whole video on this. But this was CBC News, which Gweilo told me is like a big deal in Canada. I don't really know anything about Canadian media, but it was CBC News. And they basically took the facts of one of these foreigners here, her name's Cindy, and completely distorted the truth. They made it sound completely different to how it was, like just to sell the news, just to like cash in on this whole virus thing and hype it up. And they'd said things which were completely, either they'd taken things out of context or they'd added stuff which just wasn't true. I can't remember the exact details of it, but it was pretty horrific, and she was pretty annoyed about it. And for that, it's just kind of, it's really poor form, right? Really, really poor form, because the people, in my eyes, the people, especially like big news stations like CBC, and it's like I guess it's the equivalent of like the BBC in England. These are like the guardians of information. These are people who should be reporting stuff as it is, not adding stuff. It's really, really poor form.
So, Alex, just for the viewers that are new, you guys will be able to see below in the box that we have every channel listed there, so you can become subscribers of our channels, Gweilo 60s, myself, Reporterfy Media. These guys have, for the fourth week now, made me the host of this show. Hey, I love what I do, so that's good. And we have all our channels below, so if you guys just want to hit subscribe to that so you remember where to find our videos at the end, that is fantastic. Okay, so here's something that I wanted to add to your story, Alex. And for our Asian viewers that have just come in, we're starting to see a lot of requests for our WeChat pay code. There it is. Alex is going to be the one that will be taking the donations for the group today. There he is, looking very professional. So we'll keep that on the screen for the moment there. And I will go over to Matt in a moment here. But I just wanted to add to your point there about the CBC. What is interesting is that we don't recognize, as a Canadian, that the CBC, it's always been there as part of our lives. It's the Canadian Broadcasting Council or something like that, I believe. I've been out of Canada so long, I forget that. But it is, we can call it a state-funded news organization. Now, for our viewers here, you have state media in China. We'll call it CGTN. But what I find very interesting on YouTube is when you go watch a CBC article, it doesn't have that this is a funded channel from the Canadian taxpayer or the Canadian government. And how interesting, or the hypocrisy of that is quite comical, if you ask me. So Matt is bumping in and out of here. We'll get him back in a second. he promised to show us the fantastic view of where he's at, and I think he's back. Are you back, Matt? We don't hear you. You're on mute. No problem. Okay, he's getting set up there. I just want to say, Rob, €5. Enjoy the content on your channel earlier. Matt definitely sends out his thank you for that. You guys, if you want to get your questions in, Rob saying, I don't have Super Chat on. Would love to buy you a beer. I do have Super Chat on. Maybe try again, because I have been receiving donations. Maybe somebody in my group can direct Rob how to do that. Anyway, Rob, if you can't donate today, not a big deal. We can work it out after the end of the show. And I'm going over to Matt. Matt's just going to unmute his microphone. Yes, we hear you, sir. Fire away. Let's hear what you got to say this morning.
You know, my biggest thing is that blame. This whole thing is based on blame, I think. China is goat, and in some ways they're justified. I try to have a pretty balanced approach to this, but I'm very curious. Has anybody heard any news of South Korea blaming China? Because
no.
If you were to take two petri dishes, like you're a scientist, and you take two petri dishes, and you have the same amount of virus on one hand and the same amount of virus on the other hand, and you put them into two petri dishes, one was South Korea and one was America, and you looked at the result, and all of a sudden the American one, 3/4 of that petri dish is infected, but the South Korea one isn't. Wouldn't you just say there was something that whatever the virus was, whatever it started, this experiment failed and this experiment succeeded, and if the successful experiment is not blaming the virus, but the failed experiment is saying the only reason that we failed is largely, or the reason that this is such a mess is because of where the virus came from. I think that's a real cop-out. And I recently made a video last night that was a bit about my feelings regarding this, and I got some people that were pretty aggressively saying, it's all about where the virus came from. But the virus could have come from almost anywhere. Let's say it came from Indonesia. Let's say it came from some backwater place in the middle of nowhere. What it did to the country, based on how big and strong and powerful the country is capable of fighting the virus, says a lot more than where it came from, in my opinion. And you can kind of see it when you look at South Korea's response. I haven't seen South Korea asking for reparations or saying that, damn the Chinese for sending this. That speaks volumes to me, actually.
And Matt, thank you for covering that. I have something I'd like to get off my chest here today, and that is I'm looking at the timeline. I've spent about 5 days now looking at the timeline on how this happened. And I go all the way back to the 31st of December when the Center of Disease Control and Prevention learned about this. And, and then on the 1st of January, they were developing reports from the Department of Health and Human Services about the situation. And it wasn't until about maybe 3 or 4 days later in January that the CDC began to track this situation, and the Chinese officials came out. They didn't quite know what it was. Okay, yes, when you're getting something like this, you're not quite sure what's going on. And everyone says, well, doctors are being silenced. Well, one thing that I think a lot of the world doesn't understand is you cannot come on your phone and use WeChat and say, hey, I think that we have something major here. Not quite sure, but I'm going to spread it out to the entire population of 1.4 and put them in billion and put them in panic. So there is proper protocols that I think any doctor in any country has to follow. And I'm not justifying that, what the Chinese government did in the early days, but let's be realistic here. It was, and correct me guys if I'm wrong here, but wasn't it, we'll call it the Chinese New Year, the night before New Year's, when the Chinese government went into Wuhan and said, hit the brakes, no one in, no one out. We have a major, major problem here. And that is New Year's Eve, basically to us Westerners here, that's New Year's Eve that the government shut it down. And all I heard from Western media is how dare they lock these people in? How dare they corner them? It's against their rights to do this. You know, this was categorically one of the biggest sacrifices I have ever seen in the 50 years of me being on this earth. A country that sacrificed its economy, a country that tried to isolate itself for the world. And what do you get in return? You get someone who I really respected for quite a few years come on national television, even on the 4th of March of this year. It's the administration in other countries, but I'm going to paper it Western countries, come on there and say, well, hasn't really got here yet. We've shut down the airports to these countries. It hasn't really got here. Well, let's say you called this ground zero and the Chinese started at 0. They started at 0 and they've contained it 60, we'll call it 90 days later. We're not out of the woods yet, but let's say they've contained it. Well, lo and behold, then let's call the American one on March 4th, where they said they had 100 cases. So if you're a person and you want to be in here and say, well, we would like to get it at 0 and contain it at 85,000 people and end of story. But can you imagine if the Chinese or any other government in the world was given a 2-month heads up on this, on how much it would be contained? Well, now we really have a problem, and this is much bigger than the administration in the US and in Canada and Australia. This is way above the politicians now. Now we're into seeing economies around the world being shut down. Of the 3 people on the panel, anybody want to add in on that? Throw your hand up and then I'll go to you guys. Anybody got some information?
Yeah, sure.
We're going to go to Alex and then we're going to finish it off with Gweilo and then come back around to Matt. Go ahead, Alex. Fire away, sir.
So for me, it was kind of, I thought I'd just start with like my first experiences. So like, in my opinion, the pandemic spread a hell of a lot worse than it could ever have done, because it was like almost like the perfect storm. It's like this virus which spreads so fast and so quickly, but timed exactly at the biggest human land migration in the world, which is when Spring Festival. Anybody knows anything about China? When Spring Festival hits, there are people everywhere traveling from here to there. It is like you've set fire to an ant's nest, and they're all just bailing out everywhere. People are going home because it's like the most important event in the Chinese calendar. And so it spread it it spread it fast. I remember being sat here just before Spring Festival, and we'd had a holiday. I'd finished work. I wasn't broken up from school then, but I'd finished work. And I remember as the days went on, how the severity just increased. I remember because we had this thing here in Wenzhou. I don't know if you guys had it anywhere else in China, but we had an outbreak of dung fever, maybe like a month or 2 before. And they'd been outside, because like where I live is like a enclosed complex. It's very secure. It's quite good. But they'd had all these people in like hazmat suits, big chemical respirators, spraying this fog like out to all the bushes and trees to kill the mosquitoes. And we'd had one, like the news had started and people were saying, be careful. We'd been out. And then the next day, I remember sitting on my balcony and looking out through the glass as more people in these hazmat suits turned up and started spraying fog out into the thing. And it goes like several stories up. It looks quite scary when you see it. I can show pictures later, maybe on next week's stream I can find them, but it looks crazy. And so anyway, it gets more and more serious. And then like as the news comes in that China's shutting down, and like you think how many hundreds of millions of RMB, not dollars, is getting lost. If it has to be serious for them to say we are canceling all these meals, like basically the most important thing in the Chinese year is being canceled. Like that's not only bad for business, but it's bad for families. Families, like a lot of families only see themselves, like see the whole family at this time of year. I mean, I love it because I see my wife's family that I don't see for the entire year. We all come together and it's great. And then the way China handled it has been absolutely fantastic. It seems kind of scary. Like on the surface, it seems scary. People in hazmat suits locking stuff down. You can't go out. Like for here, if you guys don't know, Wenzhou was I think it was the second worst hit city outside of Wuhan, because we had so many people, like I think we had 30 or 40,000 people come back, and there would have been in the hundreds of thousands if it had not been shut down. So there were some scary measures. We were only allowed out at one point, like every 2 or 3 days, and you could go out and you had to have like a special check sheet, come back in. But
Go ahead, Alex. Sorry.
So it's testament to China that they acted in a super strict way, and the virus and everything kind of, it shot, the level shot right down. And when I see how the West has been kind of, like dealing with this, it just makes me angry, because they're not like, this is the one downside to all this personal freedom and people and their human rights being affected, that people don't want. Oh, no, you can't stop me from going here. It's my human rights. You saw people at spring break that were like, well, it's not gonna affect me because I'm young. And like,
so you've really noticed the difference from your countrymen compared to where you are right now. That's definitely for sure, right?
Yeah, not just my country, like everywhere. I have like family in America. A lot of my family come from South Africa. It's all the West. It's poorly handling it. It's terrible.
Well, just to continue on with that, I just want to say thank you to Ronald Kim. If I add one more thing, this is from his super chat, and we really appreciate your contribution. Just reading his comment, if I add one more thing about South Korean media's Conservative Party and the right-wing media's played an anti-China card on February to March, sadly. Well, thank you very much for bringing that to our attention.
Thanks, Ronald.
And thank you for that, Ronald. That's why we like to, see some of these super chats, and we highlight them when they come up. Caliber Wings, thank you very much. He said, even most Americans' late night satire host gets it. Isn't that the truth? Quite comical. And thank you, Caliber, and fantastic little channel you got there. Awesome. I'm going to go back over to Matt. Matt, let me cue this up for you here, because I'm finding that this is happening to me this week. I'm seeing friend relationships with my friends that I've had for 2 and 3 decades be very strained for my I guess I'm going to call it my opinion on China. I spend a lot of time in China, as you guys can see on my vlogs on the channels here. I just squeaked out of Chongqing just before this hit Chongqing, and I've been waiting to get back in there, and I'm just kind of in self-exile in Thailand at the moment. But Matt, have you seen this divide friends or family, or has it divided anything that you've seen in the last month?
I have always sort of been a progressive guy, so people know that. I have had a few people tell me on my channel that I should stop this anti-Trump rhetoric, or I'll unsubscribe. But I have also received interesting messages. I was trying to find it on my phone, but basically people actually being quite understanding and saying, I said, I grew up hating China. I grew up 5 years old. I was in that age group where anti-China rhetoric was the order of the day. And so he was saying that he was trying to understand my point of view, because he knows that I have sort of a unique perspective, seeing as though I live in China and that I'm also an American. And so I've had a lot of that as well, where people are kind of like, I don't like this guy. I don't like what this guy is saying, but I'll listen. And damn, I really, really like that. I mean, that is what will change the world, listening to people that you don't agree with, because you think and understand that they have maybe a little bit of a unique perspective. So I've had a lot of that, and that's very hopeful for me with regards to this whole process, because this has been a real mess. And all 4 of us have quite a leg up as far as opinions go on this whole. How's my audio, by the way? Is it okay?
Your audio is fantastic, Matt. We know that you're sacrificing a little bit of the audio to make every single person on this panel jealous of that view behind you. That is amazing, China. Kevin Williams, thank you very much for the contribution. Here is his comment. Here in Ontario, I've had to defend my Chinese wife against hate on social media, but today a Chinese-born nurse was spit on in Toronto. How do you guys feel about this? That is absolutely disgusting.
Yeah.
Here's where I want to get into this, guys. As Matt was saying that he got some comments on the channel. This entire panel here, and I just want to say to everyone on this panel, we're approaching over 2,000 viewers now, and that is absolutely amazing. Alex, thank you for bringing your audience in today. That's greatly appreciated. And Gweilo and Matt's, you guys are super supportive, and my channel, thanks as well. And thank you to Art Larson. Has health tracking via smartphone been a good thing for China? I'm going to get Matt to answer that. Matt, can you answer that, please?
Yeah, any step that you can take to control the contact tracing is a good thing. So I'll give you an example. Somebody contacted me and said that they sent me a really long email, actually, and they said that they woke up one day and they had a fever. So they called the hospital, and the hospital came up to their house and then said, okay, we're going to take you for some testing. And they took him to the hospital. They also quarantined his family. And then via the app, they could tell that a grocery store down the street was a place that they had frequented during the last little while. The supermarket, and they actually pulled somebody via a ID card that they had their ID card like lost or stolen. So somebody was using their ID card at the grocery store, and suddenly that person got a knock on the door and said, "You're under quarantine." And so they took all the people and then pulled them aside, and they tested the original guy 3 times. So 3 tests to make sure that they were positively positive or negative. Turns out he was negative, but they are able to contact trace via that app in a way that you cannot do any other way. I mean, you can find where the person's gone, who they've interacted with, and who those people have interacted with in a way that you could never do in typical investigatory ways with, like, say, just a guy with a notebook going, where did you go? Like typical private eye styles. So I think it's a great way to control this. Now, if you were to take this to the next level and maybe incorporate it into some sort of social monitoring thing or a governmental Big Brother system, then you could get, it could get quite dicey. But as far as it works for this virus, I would say it is one of the reasons China's been able to put a lid on it in such a way.
I have another question for the panel here. And, since you guys are there, and I'm going to be there in a few weeks back in Chongqing as soon as they let my butt in there, China has now opened up its economy again. Gweilo, I'm going to go over to you because in the video yesterday, you were talking about a lot of shops that were opening and some that didn't open. Let's talk about the economic impact on what America can expect when it opens its doors finally and the rest of the world opens its doors. And thank you very much for your super chat, Tim K. Appreciate that. So Gweilo, maybe, when you were walking down, you noticed a couple of shops weren't there, but then again, you noticed a few construction sites were active. Maybe you can give us the heads up on what you're feeling.
Yeah, before I get started, Ken Uyghur, thank you. Fluffing Fluff, Bermuda 975, Rob GTI 180, Anita Quash, Tung Lu, Francisco Rivera, of course, MWLI 1984, Xiao Sinran, I probably slayed that one, says Western media is such hypocrites. Peter Liu, Ronald Kim, But Francisco Rivera says, Mexico is expected to be the next epicenter of deaths. If this happens, could this confirm governments around the world sprayed upon their own people? No, Francisco, I really don't think so. I don't think anybody is maliciously doing anything out there that, along those lines. I think that everybody is, especially the governments, are trying to quash this as much as they possibly can. So no, I don't believe that for 1 minute. And then getting back to your question, Alex, see, the economy in China took a big hit. If any of these businesses were teetering on the edge of going out of business, they went out of business, especially restaurants, gyms, your local shops. I know I've got a friend that does export business, and she's a WeChat friend of mine. With the trade war that was going on prior to this coronavirus hitting, that nobody hears about anymore, for a good reason, I would imagine. But she was having trouble dealing with it because most of their exports were going to the United States. Now that this pandemic has hit, nobody's buying, everybody's staying at home. Nobody, that export business has basically shut down until things start to, and then there's no manufacturing. Everybody's not in the, so the whole country was basically shut down. The only places that I see that are up and running and doing good again like they were prior are the very large businesses that had lots of money in their back pocket, or the mom and pop operations, because Chinese people are basically savers. If they've got a little soup kitchen or a little restaurant or whatever, they don't go out and buy that Mercedes-Benz, that $1 million house. They don't, they're not out partying with their friends on the weekends. They're working their asses off, because that's what the Chinese do. If there's more money to be made today, then they'll make it. So all of those savers had that money in their genes to make sure that if they had a rainy day, and obviously this is a rainy day, they would have funds to finance themselves through the bad times. And you see that in those smaller shops, and those are basically all still there, which is the difference between the United States, Canada, Great Britain, where people are basically stretched to their limits. You don't have the taxes, your property taxes, your gas taxes, your every type of tax in the Western world in China. So people, when they make $3,000, they actually make $3,000. So I think the idea, what I'm trying to say is, the West is not a saving country. People will spend, they've got credit cards, whatever. In the East, they're savers. They put that money in the bank. So when they do have problems, I think that's why you're going to see the economy of China sort of bump up really quick, just for that fact alone, that it did hit some of these companies, but those companies were the ones that were probably going to go out of business anyway. And the businesses that are solid in the country, and the mom and pop operations that save money, I think we're going to be okay over here. It's sort of like night and day. And there's no government handouts here too, where you get Canada and the United States, and somebody says, well, from the United States, well, the United States government's only giving us $1,200, where the Canadians are getting $2,000 a month. And I said, well, it's the same thing. Canadian dollars worth that much less. You know what I mean? 1,200 American is 2,000 Canadian. So they're basically giving the same to their people, bolstering. Where do you think that's going to end up? On your grandchildren's tax roll? Because somebody's got to pay for all of that money. So the West is going into debt more. The East is coming out of it and looking fairly good. So I think China's going to come out of this very well.
And those are interesting points.
Can I say 2 points?
Yeah, I'm going to go now to Matt. We're going to give Matt the floor on this. He's got something to add on this. And just want to say that we're well over 2,000 people. If you guys have just joined us, get your super chats in there, guys. We got 4 channels going here at one time, over 2,000 live viewers at this. And we're going to continue on with Matt here. Matt, you have something that you'd like to talk to us about and add on Gweilo's comment. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, my wife and I were just talking about that the other day, how there's a statistic that says Americans are $400 away from being broke, basically. And she was just astonished at that fact. I mean, you can even find fairly impoverished people in China that have enough money to send home to family all the time. Like, you'll have somebody on the street making peanuts, like probably literally making peanuts, physically and rhetorically, and sending money back home to their family, even in tens or $20 at a time, or even less. So Annie surprised at the fact that that in America, it's such a successful and modern society could have that kind of a problem. My second point is that what Gweilo said about the businesses closing and things like this also ties into this whole conspiracy theory that China did this intentionally. Listen, China has deals with countries all over the world to supply any manner of product. They don't want to disrupt that. They have set up a system over the last 50 years and have an intention to keep it going for the next 100 years. And they don't deal in sharp turns. They don't deal in very sharp maneuvers. They deal in slow and steady wins the race. And a pandemic just doesn't fit on that ideology. So the idea that China would intentionally shoot themselves in the foot by introducing a pandemic that would disrupt all of their supply lines, it just doesn't make sense.
Just want to say thank you. I'm not sure whose channel this came into, but Philip Chang for the $10 super chat. Thank you very much for that. And Philip, if you did have a question, please ask the panel. Caliber Wings, Matt's anti-rhetoric, Alex Strain's relationship is based on his opinion on China is what Mr. Dumbrell spoke about, taking sides, stating that the facts are seen by those who can't see as taking sides. I'm going to absorb that and think about that. I did watch that video yesterday, but I'm going to add something to this, guys, where I'm not going to actually put it out to my viewers to say that, are you happy or unhappy what I say? If there's something that I've learned from this panel is that I have to truly believe in what my opinion is and give you my opinion, and not to try to deviate to say, well, I want to make this side happy and that side happy. So, let's all live in a happy world. One thing I've learned that now, as meeting Gweilo in the last month, who spent a month and a half with me together, is he was saying, you know what, Alex? Say what your opinion is. Talk to these people. And, what I've noticed here in the last couple of weeks, as I'm trying to get back into China there, the Chinese media has reached out to me in I don't know if a lot of you guys are just joining now, but I do a lot of my videos in Chongqing for the moment, and I'll be moving on to other cities after that. But the Chongqing media, and I think a lot of these people on this panel have been contacted by media outlets in China, not to, try to get us to cheerlead for them, but actually the questions that were asked were quite, forthcoming. Like they said to me, how can we get the message out that we're back open again? What can we do? How can we calm the society down? And to my American friends that are watching today, this isn't China versus United States of America. Chinese and Americans have a very, very special relationship, and if you think about it, those two together could be massive leaders in technology, delivery of goods, economies. They have the potential to work together and have, I'll call it the G2 if they wanted to. I mean, they have that much power between the both of them, and I don't know why people around the world seem to think that it's China versus the US. I don't think that, at least from the China's perspective. I think they want to work with the Americans. And we always say, well, the Chinese are making cheap Chinese goods. That's not fair. I mean, if you got an iPhone in your pocket or a Mac computer or something like that, that product's built in China and it's of top grade. Guys, I'm going to spin it here a bit and just see what you guys think of what happened to the Hong Kong situation. That went really quiet quickly. Does anybody, Alex, you look like you might want to tap in on that. And thank you to MW for the... Sorry, go ahead, Alex.
Not commenting on the actual situation itself. That's a different topic, but it's kind of disappeared. Everything, every other thing which was kind of on the boiler is now gone. This is like
You're in China?
I almost had to stop going on Facebook because this is all you see. All you see is just the virus, and it's just becoming like the only topic of conversation for people now. I mean,
does anybody know on this panel what on earth happened in Hong Kong? It's just
I don't know the actual resolution of it, no, but I know I'm not sure, because that's the thing. It's so hard to follow on social media, and it's so hard to keep up with what's real and what's not real, that sometimes it just gets lost. It just gets lost in a sea of nobody knows what is the actual truth.
Yeah, I don't follow the Hong Kong stuff very much anymore because it seems to be a non-issue now that the coronavirus has taken over. I do know that wearing a mask now is probably acceptable in Hong Kong rather than before when wearing a mask was not acceptable.
Yeah.
I think we need Daniel here to offer his Hong Kong opinions.
You know,
I
another
10 months on that.
another interesting thing that's come out of this. I mean, every tarmac in the world's pretty much full of jets on it. This has given the environment quite the breather here for 60 days to 90 days. I'm just wondering when Greta is going to come into this forum and give us a super chat for grounding the world economy. So,
Well, maybe we could get her on the panel.
yeah. Russ Sherwood, thank you very much for your contribution. And thank you for that, sir. Matt, I got a question for you here. Do you see, where do you see China coming out of this now? I mean, and, to deviate a little bit away from the coronavirus, and we're going to go back into now, how are we going to get through this? What advice can you give to, you're in China, you're seeing it. How are they getting the engine back going? And what advice can we give to our viewers, our Western viewers, to what can they expect?
Well, I mean, China right now is about 2 months ahead of a lot of the West right now. So if the West was on the same aggressive containment path, then you could theoretically say that we are where America will be in like a month or 2 months. I mean, I think that China also stands to potentially have a second wave if they don't play their cards quite right. But I think life, everybody's nervous, everybody's worried. The whole world is sharing in this worry and paranoia and grief too. So it's a bit of a unique circumstance. I mean, I live in this building. We bought this apartment or leased this apartment before the outbreak, before Christmas, and this whole building is empty. Like, I like that whole building right there is completely empty. There's nobody living in it. In fact, we're the only one using the elevator up to our place. It was totally disrupted. I mean, I try to judge things on my scale. I live sort of macro. I just can judge what's going around me, or micro, right? I can't necessarily see the macro, but I think that the thing we need to worry is the aggression and the blame leading to conflict, and conflict on a big scale like war, and also conflict on a small scale like racism and bigotry. Like our last couple of episodes was xenophobia, and it's even reversed. There was a super chat here I wanted to touch on that was talking about the anti-African bigotry here in China. I don't know completely about it, but I do think it's relating to an advertisement that I saw that was reposted. It was a picture of a black foreigner that was being thrown into a garbage can because they were trying to say that foreigners who don't abide by the mask rule or abide by the that have been instituted for controlling the spread of this, if foreigners are blocking this, then get out of here. We don't even need you. And the foreigner image that they chose was a black guy with a backpack on, which was quite, it was an interesting choice of artwork, you know what I mean? And so I think that we're on like a knife edge, and it would be very easy for us to fall off and into some really, really dark places. And that's what I see the future being is the next couple of years of anger and blame and hatred, and that can go in all different directions.
Just to add to that, Gweilo, carry on with this one.
Okay, I really don't think that it's very widespread. Racism, people not liking foreigners, whether they be black or white. But being a white person in China, I might not know about the Black experience as much as as somebody from Africa or an African American or any Black people from around the world. But I really don't see the racism that much. And, maybe because I'm in Nanning and we're off the beaten path. Sure, it's a capital city of Guangxi province and 7 million people, but it's still a world away from Ningbo, Shanghai, Beijing, Guangzhou, so, but I don't see the racism because when you're in China, most everybody is Chinese. Sure, they've got 50 some different ethnic backgrounds and such, but unless you're in the Uyghur population, basically everybody looks Chinese. So they don't know racism like the Americans or the multicultural countries out there where you've got different organizations like the Ku Klux Klan or the Black Panthers, or what I mean. So I think it's a very few number of people that actually think that way in China, and that's my part of it. Oh, and while I've got the scene here, I'd like to thank a couple of these people that have been sending super chats to me. Philip Chang, Joshua Liu. I got to admit, the pollution is a real problem. After the lockdown, much less air pollution, and the spring is so beautiful in Nanjing. Yeah, I agree with that. After the lockdown, the pollution has basically disappeared in a lot of the big cities. And I think that's not just here in China. I think that's just about everywhere around the world. Da Wei, thank you. Russ Sherwood, thanks, Russ. Russ, you're the man. He's a popular guy in my comment section. David Chung, Hong Kong's still protesting, but on Animal Crossing. I'm not quite sure what that means, but oh, that's a video game, Animal Crossing. See, that's why Randy is there as a moderator on my channel. She helps you out.
I just want go ahead, Gweilo, finish up.
And Hodge Peng, invite Nathan and the Barretts next time. Well, we'll think about that.
So, just want to say thank you to everybody. Also, to the moderators in the group, if you want to be a moderator in any of our chat groups, just let us know. Wesley behind the scenes will allocate you a wrench to do that. We do see a lot of different opinions, so just be cautious, everyone, that we don't mind opinions, but there is a limit to it. It's pretty much a 1, 2, 3 strike, you're out rule. And you'll know that very quickly. And that's what we're trying to do, just to let you guys know we're well over the 2,000 active viewers now as we get into the second part of our show. Something I want to add here that I've been experiencing here in actually being outside of China at the moment in Thailand is that we are seeing I think it's a lot of countries have really started to become nationalists. Now, I want to say that not in a way that I'm saying people are, I just think that this pandemic it's gone on in this world here has really, hurt a lot of people financially, hurt a lot of relationships, hurt a lot of friendships, and countries are, going against each other. But it was the first time that I've walked down the street with a mask on and walked past a Thai person where they have turned their head at me and covered their face. And that to me was, I finally started to feel that, right, okay, I kind of know how it feels now. And we're getting a lot more of that now. As China is starting to gear back up, where I'm right now is we're gearing down. I think actually Thailand's done quite a good job of what they've done with measures. An interesting point, though, the Thai government did close its airport even to its nationals. Okay, so there are a lot of Thais that even are not allowed into the country, but our entire airspace has been grounded, no in, no out. Caliber Wings, social media, the mainstream and availability access to vlogs is causing the real spread of information, factual or fake-sided or otherwise. One has to make his or own assessment. That's true. And the cool thing is if you like this, you got 4 people here giving you their opinions. I'm going to go to Alex Absolute here. Alex, you're new to this panel. When you got the heads up to come on this panel this week, this is pretty much your first time in front of a panel giving your opinion to people. Are you nervous to do that, or how do you feel about talking about your feelings? Because you've got people in the United Kingdom that follow you, people in the US, and people in China. How do you feel about the situation?
For me, this kind of thing is much easier than a lot of things I've had to get used to coming to China. Like anybody who knows me, I'm quite an outspoken, loud, kind of in your face kind of person. That's just kind of me. Some people take it wrong. Some people get offended. I'm always a super nice, kind person, but I'm just kind of excitable. I always feel like people always describe me as like I'm on a permanent coffee high. But when I came to China, the one thing, the other side to that is that I'm quite shy if it was in front of large crowds of people. Now, when I came to China, they instantly, like as soon as you start teaching and working for businesses here, they kind of expect in China, like because from what I've seen anyway in China, from a very young age, you're exposed to kind of being on a platform and being people like seeing you. When I first got here, I was at a primary school, and it's like to put it in perspective, a primary school in the UK, big one, maybe 200 students. Here, there was like the one I came to, there was more teachers than all of that, and the students were like in the 3,000s, and they'd have these kids up on stage in front of a whole field full of their peers, singing and dancing and doing whatever. So they kind of like Chinese. I find Chinese people are very used to performing on stages and being in front of a lot of people, and they're very comfortable with it. Whereas I've never really been. I'm more comfortable with my friends or like just hanging out. But since coming here, that's all changed. Now, if you compare me to now to 7 years ago, I will quite happily sing and dance around in front of like whole groups of parents and do like the clown show, because, when you teach younger children, that's kind of all part of it. So actually doing live streaming, this is my first time ever live streaming. But essentially I've kind of been doing it like in real life for a long time. And then since the outbreak, I've been teaching on live. Since January, I've been teaching like online. So I'm basically doing the same thing. I'm in the same room. I haven't put the fancy cameras and stuff behind it because they don't care about that. But essentially, like talking like this it's cool. It's great. This is essentially just hanging out with friends. Half the time, I don't even realize that we're live on the internet. I'm just seeing you guys and hanging out, but via a screen.
Well, Alex, you got over a couple thousand people watching you. No pressure.
And I'd like to add a little bit to what Alex is saying. Alex
Please
Absolute, you guys should, everybody that's watching this live stream, you should go and watch Alex Absolute's channel and subscribe to it. He's great.
I try and do my best. I've kind of gone a different route from a lot of people, because I'm trying to like recently I've been doing more just talking heads, but I've also spent, like, one of the bonuses to this whole lockdown has been I've had more time to focus. I've always been an editor, so I've been focusing a lot on After Effects and doing stuff because I want to. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of him, but there's a content creator I really like. He's like almost half my age, Andreas Hem. It's this very much YouTube. Like all the really cool content creators are super young now, but I think he's from like Norway. But he does vlogs, and he kind of incorporates special effects and VFX stuff. And that's kind of, I'd like to be like the Andreas Hem of the China vlogging community, just to kind of, because everybody needs their niche. And I think this is a part that isn't there in the China vlogging community. So I also try and stick away from, I do like discussions like we're having now, and especially since the virus, I've been doing more. But I want to steer away from like stuff. I don't know. I want to just focus back on the fun and bring fun vlogs back again. So
well, that's good, and the good thing is you've got some time, a little bit of time on your hands to do that now with a little bit of slowdown, and as the economy gets going, and you got some new viewers. We got some new super chats that come in. One that was just taken off the screen. Wesley, if you can pull it back up. I don't know. I just missed it. Maybe you guys caught that. Yeah, thank you for showing Nanning City. I guess that's going out to you, Gweilo. And Hey Bing Wang. I live in Boston. I'm concerned if the U.S. can safely open up. I think they just going to open up and let it run through the population. What do you guys think of that, Matt? What do we think of that? Yeah, please take it.
Well, I think it's nuts. I think that I mean, if you look at that's what isn't it Norway that's deciding, or Sweden, right, is trying to do the herd immunity.
Belarus,
UK too.
Yeah. I mean, the whole point, like, okay, my brother-in-law works in a hospital that does kidney transplants. My sister is a pediatric nurse, and my stepmother works in a clinic. All three are slammed. All three are at capacity. And if you open the cage and let the beast out, lots of people are going to unnecessarily die. Now, if socially everybody understood the severity of the problem, then you could let everybody just do whatever they wanted if they knew and understand how to be responsible. But the problem is that you have people that don't understand the severity, and all you need is one of those people to walk into a place without a mask and cough on somebody, which has happened. In Detroit, for example, a bus driver was posted a video in downtown Detroit, and he's like, "You guys are going to kill me. Every time you come into this bus, you're coughing without putting even your hand over your mouth, and you're going to kill me." And you know what? A week later, he's dead of COVID-19. He got the virus and he died. So you're going to have a lot of situations like that. And the problem is that Tony Scaramucci, he's like this kind of New York politician who was a big Trump friend. But one of his biggest lines was, "The fish rots from the head down." And when you have somebody like Donald Trump who stands up and says that the world is recommending, hey, look who just popped in. Yeah. But if you have people that are saying, that you need to wear your mask, the president of the United States says it's recommended that you don't wear your mask, but I'm not going to, that totally disrupts the mission, So you got to lead from, and if the leader is saying it's no big deal, then if you let everybody go, and there's a large percentage of people out there that says Donald Trump thinks it's no big deal. I'm not going to wear a mask. I'm not going to do all these preventative measures. Then the whole system melts down. And long story short, it's going to be a disaster.
I think you're right about that, Matt, because people take their direction from their leaders. And if the leaders don't take it seriously, then the rest of the people, or a good number of the population of that country, aren't going to take it seriously. It's like growing up. Like, I grew up in Weldon, Saskatchewan, 250 people. Yeah, I know, a metropolis for sure. But the older boys, the bigger kids on the block would just not allow bullying. And so it was a great place to grow up because it was just a safe, really nice place. And then 7 miles down the road, you got Kinistino, Saskatchewan, that it was exactly the opposite. And it was dangerous, and there was bullies, and there was fighting. It all depends on the type of leaders that you have in your community that makes it what it is. And I think you're seeing that in the United States, that the leaders aren't taking it seriously. The leaders are pointing fingers. The leaders are blaming other people, and that sort of incites the followers or the citizens of that country to do exactly the same as the leaders, and it's not a healthy thing.
Gentlemen, to just to add to this is that I can see both countries, and I'm going to go back to the U.S. China thing because it does take the line. it takes the center of a lot of attention in the media. That's for certain. These countries can progress and move forward together if they take the right approach. But what is causing this rift? I mean, anyone from this panel here, what is causing this, anti-China, anti-US? It's the blame game on both sides. What is causing this, and how do we move forward that both of these countries win together? Or is there a solution? Or is that just a hard question to answer?
I think it's fear.
Alex,
Yeah.
you want to start off with this, Alex, and we'll go to Matt.
I think the basic emotion driving the whole situation is fear. A lot of it on both sides. It doesn't matter whether it's the fear of the Chinese by the West or the fear of the West by the Chinese, because there has been a kind of a shift. Like since the borders in China shut down, I've not personally experienced anything myself, but you've seen it out there in the news. And I think the basic core emotion of all of it is fear, because when people panic, they're scared. When fear kicks in, people do things that they wouldn't normally do and react in ways that they normally wouldn't. And it's usually like fear is a bad thing, because it's like instinct. You react instantly to something, and you have that fight or flight mode, and you just do what comes first. And I think there's been a lot of bad behavior on both sides, really. There's been some terrible mismanagement and some terrible bad behavior on both sides. But it's usually all driven by fear. I'd like to add also just to the masks thing. I think that Matt was saying, I think that's kind of really crazy, because at the minute, like, for example, my wife's friend has a company making masks. She luckily was sat eating snacks before this all kicked off, and she owns a medical supplies company, and thought, I'll buy a couple of mask machines. And now she's making these medical grade masks, not the N95, but the blue covered ones. Oops. And she said that she's now given up on the FDA approval certificate. She's got the CE one for Europe, but she's given up on the FDA certificate approval thing, because America is making it too hard and making it almost impossible for you to ship masks to the US. And that just blows my mind, because you'd think in a crisis situation like this, where masks and medical supplies and PPE equipment is essential, they'd be like, you know what, we'll just make it super easy for anyone who's got it to send it here, because we need it. And
I'm going to add to that, Alex. I'm going to add to that. We were importing some masks for the United Kingdom market, and just when you think you have door-to-door delivery lined up for the client, a lot of third parties start to get involved. A lot of airlines start to get involved. A lot of governments still don't want to waive certain taxes to bring it in, certifications. It gets, and they say we need it urgently though, but, and these things can easily derail a shipment. Normally we can get a shipment through DHL from Shenzhen, landed in Europe in about 72 hours. You start throwing in, FDA, and we asked our client, you're asking for an FDA, but you're shipping to Europe. Why are you asking FDA? Well, the CE. Well, we need this because we're worried that it's being shipped through an American courier, and the American courier may stop it or reroute it. So they were like, wow, okay, that's interesting. Guys,
real quick,
Matt, please add to this. Yes, go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, we bought 10,000 masks. We bought some KN95, we bought some N95, we bought some goggles, and we bought a bunch of stuff to send to my family. Their hospitals were running dry, and we were trying to do our part to send at least to them. We don't want to send it directly to the hospital because there is a lot of regulations, but we will send it to my sister, and she can do whatever she wants with it. At this point in time, if the president is saying you can put a scarf over your head that is much more porous than a mask, then I imagine that anything is better, and worth it to send to. Sent a couple of shipments. They got caught. It was on the China side because they were paranoid that the world was saying that China is supplying all these bad masks and they don't want to be the scapegoat for sending bad masks. So then it's very volatile. So just recently, we were able to send about 1,000 plus masks out to my family in different parts of the United States. So it's if you can't send it today, you might be able to send it tomorrow, or you might be able to repack it. I know there was an issue with goggles because the goggles were like medical grade goggles that we were trying to send, and we didn't have the license to send those. So everybody's trying to sort of cope with this thing in real time, and so. I personally think if you can send masks out to anybody, there should be very little obviously, you don't want them to be harmful, but anything to cover your face in this circumstance when people don't have any is a good thing.
Caliber Wings, thank you very much. He had a super chat. Herd immunity is a natural occurrence. I'm just reading his super chat. Evidently, millions will perish if this allows the COVID-19, hence it being controlled. And it's not an assault on freedom, in my honest opinion. It is a cherish for life. Anthman, a great chat, guys. Healthcare worker in Canada, Lower Mainland. Wow, okay. West Coast.
My home territory.
Shout out to Gweilo 60. No screening here much, and feel the response was sluggish with mixed messages at first. Masks are not plentiful. Well, we hope that improves in the next week here. Daniel Wilcox, what's better to you guys, to be a nationalist or a communist? Someone want to take that?
I don't think there's any difference. People say that your ideology makes or breaks what your country is. See, China's not nationalist or communist. It's part socialist and it's very capitalist. It's a lot of the stuff for the regular person on the street has less restrictions than any country I've ever been in the West. The people are allowed to set up businesses. People are allowed to do basically what they want. So when you start throwing these communist, nationalist names out there, it's the same as mainstream media calling a government a regime. It's trying to twist it to something that that's maybe derogatory rather than saying, well, the Chinese government, not the Chinese regime. The Chinese government is doing a good job on the COVID, not going and saying, well, South Korea and Japan are doing great jobs in dealing with the coronavirus, and not mentioning China, but South Korea and Japan sort of took a page out of the playbook from China to do what they did because they saw China was doing a really good job. But you don't get that from a lot of these people because they have this thing that they want to twist to make it look derogatory, and I think that's what you're seeing there with the idea of nationalism or communism.
And I think a lot of people.
Francisco Rivera, thanks. Daniel Wilcox and Ant-Man, thanks. I've got a number of people that are giving super chats, and maybe I'm not covering all of them.
I think you pretty much got them all.
All right.
You're doing well tonight and today. Another point that I want to bring up to this panel here, and just so if you guys are joining us now, we're actually peaking at our viewership now. So thank you very much. It's greatly appreciated. Our Asian viewers that come in here, if you'd like to contribute, because most of this is done on our own time and our own dime, there is the WeChat pay code. We've put Alex in charge of the bank this weekend. He's a good lad, and we appreciate that. Another thing that I have noticed, watching all four of our channels, we do a lot of content. I would say 90% of my channel is pretty much based in China now, and all the rest of us. I really steered away from being a blame game kind of guy, and I think most of this panel is much of the same. We are quite open to actually speak to people one-on-one about differences in a very adult environment. We welcome anyone who would like to, be on this panel and get into a interesting conversation with us and our viewers. I welcome that to anyone. So if any of these forums or these comment boxes that we're reading and all these chat boxes, if you guys have any people that you feel that you want to get onto this show or would like to join this panel, and maybe we kind of take the back seat and see what the other people, we're open to that. We will not silence anyone from getting their opinion out to our network. That is for certain. And we look forward to that. I'm going to
just throw this out here. I
yes,
just want to throw this out there. Snarky white guy, snarky guy, as some people know him, Jimmy. He messaged me the other day, and he was like, "Why hasn't anybody asked me to be part of the conversation?" So put it in the comment section if you'd like to see Jimmy.
I would love
Jimmy
to see
be in the conversation
on here, because he grew up, I think, in Hong Kong. He spent most of his life here, so he would have a sort of a different view than the rest of us. So yeah, snarky guy would be a great guy.
He's a very, very interesting guy.
So just to let our people know in the comment boxes, guys, we are four channels here in 4 streams and 4 different networks throughout YouTube, and that we. I'm just going to let you guys know my setup. In the right side of my eye here, I am trying to follow the chats, but it's pretty hard. And I'm trying to also follow the chats from background of the studio. So if we do miss some of your comments, don't worry. Some of us actually go back through the show and read the comments. But what could really help us out now is if you guys can tell us where you guys are coming from, so we can get a good gauge on when to start this show. We're pretty happy with this time slot now, but if you can just put where you guys are from, hit the like button too, so that gets this algorithm really cranked up here on the live chat. I've seen probably in the last 20 minutes, and then 100 or 200 new people come into these chat forums, especially on my channel, and probably Matt's, Gweilo's, and Alex's. So that means that we're getting some new people in here that want to hear what some people are doing inside of China instead of relying on the mainstream media. Matt, have you got a topic that you'd like to bring up tonight?
No, I mean, my last episode was talking about sort of like paranoia and loneliness, and I have a feeling that a lot of people can, it's tough when you're in a situation where you can't actually, you can't rely on your friends face to face, and you can't give, like at the end of my last episode, yeah, I'm. What is a parallel trader? What is a parallel trader? I don't know. Anyways,
I don't know.
Back to the
ask
you
for a friend. No idea.
Okay, yeah, but I think that it's everybody right now is in a real sort of lonely position right now. A pandemic, especially one that limits human contact, is a difficult place for anybody to be in, and I don't know if that's a topic or at least just a shout out to everybody that we live in an interesting time. I had somebody message me and say that, could you imagine if this pandemic came out and we didn't have the ability to do something like this where we can all talk and we're all doing our thing and we're be able to communicate in amazing ways. I wonder what life, I guess books, right? I guess I haven't read a book in forever, but it's interesting. That's all.
Matt, I want to add to that. My concern is the mental health of people in the world. People are being challenged financially. People are being challenged in relationships. People are being challenged in being in isolation. People are, many new phobias. We might see, a new disorder actually come out of this. And, how a lot of vets in the military suffer with PTSD and stuff like that, post-traumatic stress disorder. We may see something, from a psychological standpoint, really affect people worldwide. And to be honest with you, and I just want to say thank you for the super chats from Richard Gillian and ADV China.
Thanks, Richard.
Interesting. Thank you very much for that contributions. And we're going to have to come to your show and return the favor. Gweilo 60, what do you think of some of these issues, maybe from a mental health standpoint? Do you find that this could be an issue moving forward?
Well, I know that this is going to cause all of this quarantine is going to cause more separation and divorce. So that's one of the things. You notice that in France, there was a big write up the other day about spousal abuse. Going up. I'm not sure. I'm not going to say a percentage because I can't remember, but it went up considerably just because people are quarantined at home, and it's a rough place to be when you can't go out. You can't, you're sort of throttled back. A lot of people are feeling the pinch. I know in China, look at the people in Wuhan that have been locked away for 3 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just me going into quarantine for 14 days. After that 14 days, I sort of understood what these guys are going through on a smaller scale. But, my wife and I were separated. We were put into hotel rooms. We, basically could have no contact. And you look at people that have been doing it for 2-3 months. It plays on your mind. I would imagine in places there's going to be more suicide because of financial difficulties. There's going to be, as you say, there may be a new disorder coming out of this just for the fact that the fear about it, like Matt was saying, he's apprehensive about going out into crowds now. We never had that before because you go out in a crowd and it's exciting. You hit food streets and big restaurants and this is parties, hitting the bar. You know what I mean? Now people are looking at it and saying, maybe that's not a good thing. And when you get into staying at home over and over and over again, it becomes the norm. And I think you're going to see a lot of people in the future, rather than going out, just being Canadians in the wintertime when it's 8 months of cold weather and snow outside, where they just sort of hang out at home. You're going to see that
That's
more
me.
around the world.
Well, and Gweilo, thank you very much for. I call you Gweilo. It's a habit.
It's my name, man.
It's an addictive habit.
What I am.
I am deeply concerned about this because this is, if we look at a lot of the, we'll call it, I don't want to call it government medical systems, but let's just call it for what it is. Mental health is usually not covered by many insurances around the world. It's normally an additional charge to an individual. I know people that have suffered with, mental health disorders that you say, well, go to the doctor. And they say, well, I can't really get in to get an appointment, or I can, but the cost to get in there, or I need a referral to get in there. It's quite a difficult approach. And it's quite alarming that, that is one of the largest reasons for death in people over 45 is, suicide in the United States. And in Canada as well, we're starting to hear a lot of people, I don't want to jump on that and say a lot of people, but I'm starting to read some headlines of some people taking their lives in Canada due to financial problems. And this is going to be something that I'm so alarmed that, not only are the healthcare workers trying to combat this COVID head on, but can you just imagine what people are going to be going through once this is all over? It's going to be, I don't know where you pick it up because there is not the infrastructure for that in place in pretty much any country I know of right now that's going to be able to deal with this many people. You got to remember, we have locked down 7 billion people. Okay, 7 billion people.
Another side to that as well.
Please tell us, Alex.
There, just to add some positivity to all this. There's also been a whole thing, as well as all the stuff which you guys are talking about, and I 100% agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also been this whole other side of it that I've seen people that have wanted to act on starting their own kind of homegrown businesses, or people that have, on a smaller scale, have wanted to do stuff around the house. There's been a whole positive vibe coming out of this when people have had time to do stuff and they haven't had their busy lives to keep them from doing things. There's been a lot of positive vibes coming out of people just starting things that they've meant to do for many years. Just for on a very, very small scale, nothing big, nothing fancy, but I've had a couple of friends that they wanted to start their own home, making their own food. I think they started with jalapeno poppers and their own chili sauce. And they've been talking about this for years, but busy lives got in the way. And since this, now they've actually started it. There's been a lot more, as well as also with people that, you said spousal abuse and stuff. There's also been a lot of things like I, for one, always have to be traveling to work, and I'm always out and about. And now, like, I've had an amazing amount of family time. I've got a 3-year-old son and a 5-month-old son. It's just been amazing to be able to actually spend time with them. Like, in fact, if anybody's watching, quick shameless plug of my channel, but we made a collaboration video with all these the silver linings of this thing. So there has been positives as well. It's not all doom and gloom.
I want to kind of actually, Alex, I kind of want to just first of all say, Fluffing Fluff, thank you very much. Completely agree with Gweilo ideologies and just ideologies. It's the people behind the system that matter. People can't seem to get past the labels in the West, whereas Chinese just do what works. Thank you for that, Alex. I'm going to push back on that. I actually don't really agree with you on this. And the reason for that is my communication to my friends in the West are, and for the panel, for the people that are watching, my name is Alex as well, but just refer to me as Reporterfy Media. Mine is more of doom and gloom, and it's not of people being positive, because I can't really call up my friends in the Western Canada and say to them, "Hey guys, how's it going?" I get, "It's not going. It's bad. It's my mortgage is not going to get paid. I don't have enough money for groceries right now." And I'm not trying to, rain on the sunshine here, but you see the unemployment figures that are coming out of these countries. Some of these countries and some of these countries are one paycheck away from the street. And we are seeing people not just without a job, but now are worried about food. The government still hasn't got the checks to them. And, and I'm a capitalistic guy too. I like this, I'm just like you. Hey man, the world shut down. Let's try to get into some new things. That's because maybe we've made choices in our life. We maybe have been in environments that allow us to do that. But in some of these other environments, people's backs are so against the wall right now. Can you just imagine some of the pressure that these people are going through right now? It's so intense that is why I'm starting, I've made one of my last videos, I walked the empty streets of Bangkok here. I said, this is dividing countries, it's dividing families, and it's dividing friendships. I think the last thing some of my friends want to hear from me is, hey guys, the sun is great, I'm starting a new business. Actually, it's the opposite. I'm phoning up friends from 20 and 30 years ago, guys that are in my old and my friends, and saying, I want the truth, guys. How are things going for you? If they're bad, how can I help? How can I help you? Can I get my brother-in-law to go and buy you some groceries? Do you need some help with some banker that can defer your mortgage? We're in panic mode in some of these Western countries. I do appreciate what you're saying, Alex, that yes, we are seeing some very, very positive things moving forward. Innovation. This has given people time to innovate. China has been brilliant on doing this. Absolutely stunning, some of the stuff that they've done in the last couple of months. Deliveries and home deliveries and getting things and working out a whole e-commerce base behind the scenes, how to track to make sure that you're not getting infected. This is absolutely mind-blowing and fantastic to see. But from that standpoint, I just wanted to add to you and tell you that. So, guys, we're going to go around the panel. I'm going to start with Alex, because I know Alex has to definitely get out of this studio here because he's got a commitment. Alex, can you tell us what to look forward to in the next couple of weeks on your show here to the viewers and everybody? Before Alex leaves the studio, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Can you tell us what's going on your channel here in the next week or two?
I've got a few ideas in the works. Don't want to put too much out there to yet, but I'm going to try and steer away from stuff related to the current situation and try and do some more positive vibe videos. I don't know, just some more exploring, showing. Maybe I can spin. I've got a video to do with fake products here in China, not slamming them, like actually showing that, sometimes they are pretty good.
Okay.
I've got a couple of other ideas. I've got an idea planned for a video, basically to show, like, because the 2020 wasn't a great start, so I want to sort of like I don't know, like an
Kind of
encouragement
reboot?
type. Yeah,
Reboot?
like a showing,
Okay.
like starting with how bad the Spring Festival was, and then showing people that let's not forget how good it always has been. Kind of just like a nice happy kind of vibe, I guess.
Well, Alex, it's been a great pleasure to have you on here. When I get back to China and I'm going to be in your area, I definitely owe you a beer because your New Year's was wiped out this year. So you're going to get a beer from me and probably a nice
And my
meal.
birthday.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Well, Alex, I'm not sure if we're going to keep your audience with us or not. If we're not going to keep your audience, you might want to say a big goodbye to your audience and a thank you to your audience for joining tonight and watching us and watching yourself. And is there anybody on your chat group?
Yes, thank you for anybody. I haven't been very good at keeping up with the chat group, but yeah, thanks everybody for watching. It's been an unreal first experience, and looking forward to the next one. So guys, stay tuned in. If they don't keep my channel going, just switch over to one of the other guys' channels and keep watching because it's gonna be good.
It's all in the links below. Alex, thank you very much, and Wesley, we're going to tell Alex. Thank you, Alex, and cheers from us.
Right. Bye-bye, guys.
Thank you, Alex, very much. Mr. Gweilo, we'll get to you in a second here. Tuck Wailam, we need more sensible and enlightenment YouTubers like you guys to start doing more live talks. Try working together or other products. As I said, we do work together. I've done collaborations with Gweilo 60 and Matt. You can better believe it. I'm going to try to get in to see Matt as soon as I can once they let me back into China. And as I said earlier on in this show, we welcome other people that definitely do not agree with us on the other side. That is for certain. Guys, I want to bring up an important little super chat that just came up on my channel, and I'm glad it did. And Matt and Gweilo, maybe you guys can help me out with this. Wesley, do you see that by Beer Pan? Is it possible that you can pull that super chat up on my channel? If not, then I can bring it up. Carmen, thank you very much for the contribution. It's greatly appreciated. I'm going to just discuss this anyway for the panel here. Beer Pan said, I need advice from you guys as for how to get through the self-isolation, both mentally and physically. When I see super chats like that, I really want to address them because they are quite concerning from a standpoint that a lot of people are being affected by that. Maybe you can help us out with that, Matt or Gweilo. You guys have a lot of experience here being in isolation. Can somebody add to this and help us out with that?
Well, if you're, it's a bit difficult sometimes. It depends on if you have a wife or but a lot of people are out there alone, and that can be a really rough thing. And I think in a lot of ways, you start learning a bit more about yourself through these things, and it's an opportunity to get introspective in a lot of ways. We live in a time where you can buy books or download almost anything. So I think pick up a hobby, start exploring different books and different topics, and maybe you can teach yourself some things that you've put off for a long time. You can kind of look at it as a negative or also look at it as an opportunity. So just know also, it's very helpful to know that we're all in this together, and there's literal hundreds of millions of people that are isolated the same as you. That sometimes is helpful.
Well, what I do, Matt, to add to that is I try to get into a little bit of a regime where I go to the grocery store where I never used to. They do have distancing in our grocery stores as well. I kind of get out there, get a bit of the sun, try to get a bit of sunshine into your, if the sun is out, kind of just step outside, put your eyes up towards the sun there, get a little bit of the vitamin into your body, get the blood flowing a bit, and not just stay indoors. But here is the time to, if you have, and I'm not sure how old Beer Pan is, but if you have grandparents or aunts and uncles that maybe are a bit older, now is the time to get them connected. Use the Skypes, use the WhatsApps, the WeChats. Start chatting. Get out there and really use the digital highway to get in touch with these people. Kevin has a super chat. You know, I've got to go to you on this one, Gweilo. This one is right for you. Let's hear it.
Here we go. Gweilo 60 said he would address this claim that criticizing the Chinese government is tantamount to criticizing Chinese people. Please discuss. Well, you know, the idea of a country of 1.4 billion people, if they didn't have a government that they agreed with, a majority agreed with, do you think that government would still be in power? Absolutely not. You see, the idea that everybody around the world thinks that because the Western media has been just trashing out the Chinese government. And I know that you're watching, you get these other YouTubers out there that say, well, we're attacking the CCP. We're not attacking the Chinese people. Well, you see, I call bullshit on that, because one is exactly the same as the other. It's no different than the United States, Canada. If you didn't have a majority that thought the same way as that government does, that government would not be in place at this particular time. You know, so making a distinguishing difference between the CCP and the Chinese people is what I call just propaganda. It's the same as calling the CCP a regime. It's the same as you know, looking and saying, oh, this is a communist. This is an authoritarian regime. You know, it's along the same lines. It's trying to belittle the country using verbal terms, basically.
Well,
that's my opinion.
Interesting comment. Obviously, hopefully that question got answered. So, gentlemen, Gweilo, what can we expect from you this week in Nanning, since you're back on the streets there?
Well,
Tell us what you're up to.
I've got a couple of videos coming out. Looking for a better place to live comes out tomorrow morning, and it's sort of my idea of moving to China, understanding China, what I think is better for my life and my wife's life in China, and thinking that it's maybe a better place to live than where I came from. Some people might not agree, but that's part of the world. The next day is Wei Fang has been going to the doctor here, doing her checkups, her post-cancer checkups. So we're sort of inside a Chinese university hospital here in Nanning, China, and it shows the people outside, the number of people, just the ins and outs of dealing with a Chinese hospital here in China. So I think that's some pretty interesting things that are coming up. Also, I've got so many things on the because I'm just back in China. You know me. If I could just spit out 10 or 15 different videos that I'm going to be doing over the next 10 or 15 days, I might bore you and you won't watch. So,
well, Gweilo, what I like about you is you're a straight shooter, and that's probably because you and I were born probably within about an hour of each other. Go figure, huh? Years later, we're on YouTube together. We're going over to Matt. Matt, what can we expect from you this week?
First off, before I get into that, ADB China, which is Sea Milk, and I'm imagining Winston's there, is too, asked about parallel trading. I didn't even know what that word was, so I messaged him on my WeChat to ask him, and he was talking about the fact that during the beginning stages of the epidemic and onward, there was a lot of buying of masks. And in Australia, it was a big deal. In America, it was blown up as a big deal. And there was people that were going and buying bulk masks from retailers all over these areas and selling them in China. And how did at least I feel about it? I'll just answer on my own. You know, first off, they were allowed to buy the items, and they bought them at cost. There was no theft, although there was some people, especially that lady that got popular for rating those Home Depots for more than the smallest amounts allotted. So that's a negative. I am wholeheartedly against what happened. horrible. I think anybody that takes advantage of a pandemic for profit should be vilified. But I also think that it's a responsibility of the governments themselves to understand how bad the pandemic's going to be and put up safeguards against it, to kind of say, hey guys, this is going to be bad. So if you're selling masks, you need to pay attention to your stocks and make sure that people are adequately supplied. So America didn't do that. As a matter of fact, America just let people buy up all these sorts of items in huge supplies. My second comment is, if you don't have the emerged backup of these materials, which America is depleting their national stockpile of PPE right now, then you shouldn't collapse your entire stock of PPE by a bunch of people that are buying up and trying to send products back to China. That seems like a mismanagement problem, and there's a lot more issues than simply Chinese buying up masks that need to be looked at and rectified. Thirdly, a lot of this was happening, especially the Australian buy-ups were happening when China was breaking out big time. And as much PPE as you could send to stem the tide of the outbreak in China was less outbreak that would spread out into other areas. So, and now China is sending a lot of that material back. And all of that material was bought at cost and sent to China at cost. And a lot of it was profited upon, which I think is totally shitty. But a lot of it was sent to I mean, my family sent about 100 masks from the United States to China to help out. And a lot of my viewers helped me by sending masks to send to America. So there's in a lot, like all things, there's nuance, there's black and white, and there's more gray than anything. And I think that the gray is where this situation lies. As far as new content, I have a debunking video that I'm working on, where I'm kind of compiling all the things in China, all the hate that's directed at China, and I'm trying to give a unique, a balanced perspective on a lot of those things. In my own, honestly, we all have a very unique perspective on that. So I'm trying to lend that to my my videos. I've been editing amazing videos. I've been editing, for those of you that don't know, I'm cycling around the world on a 3-wheeled bicycle. And I am just finishing the episode backlog of me going into a bird. You guys had bird nests before? Have you ever eaten bird nests?
Yeah.
My wife does all the time.
I got into a bird nest house and I saw exactly how these things are farmed. It's quite an interesting thing. So look forward to that after this pandemic kind of subsides. And yeah, that's about it. Just yeah, that's all.
Well, thank you for Matt and covering that. Appreciate it. And just for all the viewers that joined my feed, we're winding down the feeds here now. You can subscribe to all of us below. It's in the description box. For me this week, I've had 2 interviews with Chinese media in Chongqing, one from a cable network and another one from the tourist media division. So a lot of my content you'll continue to see come out on Chongqing, and you guys can look forward to that. I'll probably put a pretty interesting one out tomorrow morning. So thank you very much, guys, and thank you so much, our Asian viewers, for your contributions to from WeChat. And thank you again for that. And if we've missed somebody on Super Chat, just let us know. We will probably, I think Matt was probably going to have this video up on his channel in a couple of days, and you guys can refer back to that. But from all of us, to you guys, thank you very much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you guys next week. Big goodbye from me, and please be safe and wear a mask and keep your social distancing. Goodbye from me and Gweilo and Matt. Say your goodbyes, and we're going to be out of here, gentlemen.
Thanks, guys, and thanks for the ice cream for Eva.
Oh, and I'd like to just say thanks to Fluffing Fluff again, Mayo Wayne, Angry Ranger, UK Mr. Leo, Tukway Lam, and Stephen J, Rob GTI 180, Ctian, Joseph Wong Gao, and Alex Tang, Orange Field, Best Van Home, Orange and Orange Field again. Holy smokes, you guys, you're
They're going to be playing the Oscar music now, Gweilo.
well,
Okay.
thanks to everybody, and we'll be back again next Saturday morning at 9 o'clock. Don't forget to subscribe to all of the channels. The subscriber thing makes our channels more popular, makes it easier for us to put on programs such as this. So go to that subscribe button, hit that subscribe button, whether it's JaYoe Nation, Reporterfy Media, Alex Absolute, or yours truly, Gweilo 60. And see you next week.
Thanks, guys.
Bye,
Thanks,
guys.
everyone.